Before the pyramids, before Stonehenge, before even the idea of cities, humanity built something beyond imagination. Hidden beneath the dusty hills of southern Turkey lies a temple older than any known civilization. A place called Göbekli Tepe, 12,000 years old, built with massive stone pillars carved by hands that shouldn't have known how. No metal tools, no wheels, no cities, and yet perfection in design and mystery and purpose. Who built it? Why was it buried? And how did people of the Stone Age create architecture that still puzzles modern science? In this video, we'll uncover secrets buried for millennia, from hidden carvings and strange alignments to theories that might rewrite human history itself. Stay till the end, because what you're about to discover might change everything you thought you knew about where we came from. Welcome to Göbekli Tepe. Before we talk about the mysteries of Göbekli Tepe, the strange carvings, the buried temples, and the secrets of a forgotten civilization, we need to go back to where it all began. Not just in history, but in the story of discovery itself. It's the early 1990s. A German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt stands on a barren hill in southeastern Turkey near the city of Şanlıurfa. The locals call this hill Göbekli Tepe, which means Potbelly Hill. At first glance, it looks ordinary, just another mound of earth scattered with rocks and bones. But Schmidt's trained eye notices something different. Some of the stones are too perfect, too deliberately shaped to be natural. They carry faint traces of human hands, lines, patterns, carvings. He realizes he's standing on something extraordinary, something ancient beyond comprehension. When excavations begin, the world changes forever. What emerges from the soil isn't a village or a burial site or a small shrine. It's an enormous temple complex, unlike anything ever found before. Massive T-shaped stone pillars, some weighing up to 20 tons, stand arranged in circular formations, carefully placed, aligned and engineered with purpose. Each enclosure seems like a stage, a gathering place for rituals that predate writing, metal, or farming. And here's the part that defies belief. Göbekli Tepe is over 12,000 years old. That's 7,000 years before the Egyptian pyramids, 6,000 years before Stonehenge. It was built when humans were still hunter-gatherers, long before anyone had invented the wheel, domesticated animals, or learned to grow crops. According to everything we thought we knew, something like this simply should not exist. Civilization, we were told, began after farming, when humans settled down, built villages, and developed religion as a reflection of their new organized life. But Göbekli Tepe turns that theory upside down, because here religion didn't come after civilization. It may have come before. Archaeologists begin to realize that these early humans weren't simple cave dwellers or wandering tribes. They were planners, architects, artists, and spiritual thinkers. They came together in large numbers to carve, transport, and raise these monumental stones, an act that required not just strength, but a level of social organization no one thought possible at that time. Each pillar at Göbekli Tepe tells a story. Some are blank, towering like guardians of silence. Others are intricately carved with animals: lions, snakes, vultures, boars, scorpions, foxes, and cranes, each creature etched with astonishing skill. The carvings seem alive, their purpose unclear yet deliberate. Some researchers believe they represent spiritual guides, totems of ancient clans, or mythic beings that connected humans with the unseen world. But one thing is clear: these carvings were made by people who understood symbolism, who believed in something beyond survival. The enclosures themselves, circular sanctuaries surrounded by stone walls, feel sacred even today. When the morning sun rises, the shadows stretch between the pillars like fingers of light, illuminating details that were hidden in the dark. It's almost as if the builders designed Göbekli Tepe to interact with time itself, to align with the heavens, the stars, and the cycles of nature. Some archaeologists suspect the site might have had astronomical significance, a calendar written in stone. Certain pillars seem to align with the rising of specific constellations, possibly the Orion or Sirius. If true, it means these ancient people not only built temples, they mapped the skies. Imagine that for a moment. Thousands of years before the invention of writing, before recorded history, people were carving stone, organizing labor, and studying the stars, guided only by their beliefs and imagination. And yet, the most shocking detail isn't how Göbekli Tepe was built. It's why it was built. You see, archaeologists found no signs of permanent living quarters nearby. No homes, no cooking areas, no burial grounds. Nothing that suggests people lived there. Göbekli Tepe wasn't a city. It wasn't a place to live. It was a place to gather, a sacred mountain of stone, where tribes might have come together from across the region, to worship, to celebrate, to connect with something divine. It suggests a mind-blowing idea that the desire to worship, to create meaning, to gather around a spiritual center, might have been the very reason humans began to build societies at all. Religion, in other words, may have come first. Civilization followed. Klaus Schmidt once said, "First came the temple, then the city," and Göbekli Tepe stands as proof of that. But as excavations continued, the site became even stranger. Under layer after layer of soil, archaeologists discovered not just one circle of pillars, but dozens. Each one older than the last, as if new generations kept building over the old, maintaining a sacred tradition for centuries. And then, around 8000 BC, everything changed. The people who built Göbekli Tepe buried it, deliberately, stone by stone. They covered their masterpiece under tons of earth, as if they wanted to hide it from the world. Why would anyone bury something so monumental? Was it to protect it? To mark the end of an era? Or perhaps a ritual to close a chapter of human history we still don't understand? Even today, only about 5% of Göbekli Tepe has been fully excavated. The rest remains underground, a sleeping mystery waiting for the next generation of archaeologists to wake it. And the more we uncover, the more questions arise. Some of the pillars appear humanoid, with arms, belts, and hands carved in relief. It's as if they represent ancient beings or gods, guardians of forgotten myths. Others feature animals that didn't exist in the local area, suggesting contact with distant regions or a shared symbolic language across early human cultures. Some researchers even believe Göbekli Tepe may have preserved the memory of a cataclysm, possibly the Younger Dryas event, a massive climate shift around 10,000 BC that changed the course of human evolution. Symbols carved into the pillars, like the vulture and scorpion, might represent constellations that recorded this ancient disaster. If that's true, then Göbekli Tepe isn't just a temple, it's a message from prehistory, encoded in stone by people who survived the dawn of the modern world. And yet, for all its grandeur, the site remains quiet. The wind moves through the stones, whispering secrets that no one alive can interpret. Every pillar, every carving, every buried chamber seems to say the same thing. We were here before you thought civilization began. Standing there, amid the silent stones of Göbekli Tepe, you can feel a strange connection, not to the past as we imagine it, but to a time before time, a world where humans were still discovering what it meant to be human, and yet somehow capable of building monuments that have outlasted empires. It's a humbling reminder that the story of human history isn't a straight line. It's a spiral, looping back to a place where mystery and meaning were born together in stone. And so, as we look at Göbekli Tepe today, it forces us to ask the question no one expected. What if everything we thought we knew about human civilization, its origins, its evolution, its purpose, is wrong? Because Göbekli Tepe isn't just the world's oldest temple. It's the first chapter of a story we're only beginning to read, a story carved by hands long forgotten, whispering from the dawn of time, reminding us that history, as we know it, is far from complete. Before we talk about the carvings, the alignments, and the strange symbols that cover Göbekli Tepe's stones, we need to talk about something even more unbelievable, the people who built it. Because when you stand before those towering T-shaped pillars, rising from the earth like the bones of a forgotten god, the first question that strikes you is how? How did they do this 12,000 years ago? These weren't kings with armies or engineers with blueprints. They weren't city dwellers with tools or metal or mathematics. They were hunter-gatherers, people who lived in small tribes moving from place to place, following herds of animals, gathering berries, building nothing more permanent than temporary shelters. And yet somehow, these same people built a temple complex so massive, so precise, and so mysterious that it has outlasted the rise and fall of every civilization since. It makes no sense, at least not by the timeline we've been taught. Archaeologists have found no signs of agriculture at Göbekli Tepe, No wheat, no barley, no domesticated animals. This was thousands of years before the so-called Neolithic Revolution, when humans supposedly first learned to farm. According to history books, people of that era shouldn't have had the time, tools, or organization to build something so grand. And yet, they did. Each of those stone pillars weighs 10 to 20 tons. Some are as tall as 16 feet, shaped and balanced with near-perfect symmetry. The limestone used for construction was quarried nearby, but even nearby means dragging massive slabs of rock across uneven ground. Without wheels, without beasts of burden, without metal, how did they move them? How did they lift them? How did they carve them so smoothly, using nothing but flint tools and determination? These questions have haunted archaeologists for decades. Some believe it was a communal effort, that dozens, maybe hundreds of people came together seasonally to build the site. Perhaps Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a temple. It was a social glue, a reason for people to gather, to cooperate, to create a shared identity. Imagine it, small bands of nomads, scattered across the land, meeting at this sacred hill once or twice a year. They bring their tools, their food, their stories. They hunt together, feast together, and then they build. Not for survival, not for shelter, but for meaning, for something greater than themselves. That idea alone changes everything we thought we knew about human motivation. Because if Göbekli Tepe really was built by hunter-gatherers, it means the drive to create monuments, to reach for the divine, existed long before civilization itself. But some researchers aren't satisfied with the simple explanation of manpower and cooperation. They look at the perfection of the stonework, the precision of the carvings, the mathematical layout of the circles, and they see something that doesn't fit the known abilities of that era. Could there have been a lost form of a knowledge, an ancient understanding of engineering or geometry that we've long forgotten? Some call it proto-architecture. Others whisper of a deeper mystery, that perhaps long before Sumer and Egypt, there existed a forgotten culture, one capable of building wonders. And Göbekli Tepe is their only surviving trace. No written records, no cities, no pottery, just these stones, rising out of prehistory like the last breath of an unknown age. It's a haunting thought that maybe, somewhere in the deep fog of time, humanity reached a level of sophistication we can't fully grasp, and then lost it. But even if we assume it was human ingenuity alone, the feat remains staggering. These builders would have needed to organize labor, assign roles, share knowledge, and sustain a workforce for years, maybe decades. That means they had to feed hundreds of people, provide water, tools, and shelter, all without agriculture. So how did they do it? Some archaeologists suggest that Göbekli Tepe might mark the very beginning of agriculture itself. They propose that the effort to build the temple forced people to settle nearby, to grow crops, to tame animals, to feed the builders. In other words, the temple came first. Civilization followed. Religion, not survival, may have been the spark that created human society as we know it. Göbekli Tepe could be the birthplace of that transformation, the moment when humanity shifted from surviving to believing. But then another question emerges. Why? Why would people with no permanent homes, no writing, and no clear hierarchy devote so much time and effort to build something that offered no practical benefit? There were no kings to please, no gods written in stone tablets, no afterlife texts. So what drove them? Maybe it was awe, maybe it was fear, or maybe it was something we've lost, a raw connection to the earth and sky that we can no longer feel. Some of the carvings hint at a story, one that connects humans, animals, and the cosmos. Vultures carrying headless bodies, snakes slithering around circles, foxes and cranes moving in pairs. These aren't random decorations. They're symbols, and symbols mean communication. Could Göbekli Tepe be humanity's first language of myth? Maybe these carvings were the world's earliest attempts to explain life and death, the stars, or the power of nature. Maybe these ancient builders were trying to make sense of the universe, just as we do now, only with stone instead of science. Others believe the builders were guided by the sky. That Göbekli Tepe was aligned with celestial events, solstices, star risings, or constellations that marked sacred times of the year. If true, that would mean these so-called primitive people were also early astronomers, watching the heavens with purpose and precision. Every pillar, every enclosure might have served as a map of the night sky, a mirror between heaven and earth. In that sense, the builders weren't just stoneworkers, they were cosmic architects. But still, one question lingers like an echo. If they weren't farmers, why build a temple? What could have driven these people to carve stone with such devotion, to gather in massive numbers, to raise monoliths that touched the sky? Some believe Göbekli Tepe was a place of initiation, where ancient rituals marked the passage between life and death, between hunter and human. Others think it was a communal sanctuary, a meeting point where tribes exchanged knowledge, culture, and perhaps even the seeds of agriculture itself. There are even whispers, controversial but fascinating, that it may have been built in response to a global catastrophe, like the end of the Ice Age. According to this theory, survivors of that event may have gathered here, creating a monument to preserve their memories, a warning written in stone for future generations. If that's true, then Göbekli Tepe isn't just a temple. It's a message from people who lived through the world's first great collapse, and yet whoever they were, they left no trace of their names, no graves, no tools beyond simple flint blades. They vanished as mysteriously as they appeared, leaving behind only the stones to speak for them. Each pillar stands like a witness to their existence, silent, enduring, ancient beyond comprehension. And perhaps that silence is the point. Maybe they didn't build Göbekli Tepe to be understood. Maybe they built it to remind those who came after, us, that mystery itself is sacred. Because standing in the shadow of those stones, feeling the weight of 12,000 years pressing down, one can't help but wonder, who were these people really? What did they believe in? And what did they know that we have forgotten? We may never have their answers. But their work, carved into the earth at the dawn of time, continues to challenge every assumption about who we are and where we came from. It forces us to look back not as scientists or skeptics, but as human beings standing at the edge of mystery, reaching into the dark, searching for the spark that first made us builders of meaning. Because before there were cities, before there were empires, before there were gods with names, there were hands that carved stone under the open sky, hands that shaped Göbekli Tepe, hands that changed the story of humanity forever. Before we talk about what Göbekli Tepe might have meant to the people who built it, we need to step closer to the stones themselves. At first glance, they're just pillars of limestone, weathered and silent. But when you look closely, when the light hits them just right, you begin to see something extraordinary. Carvings, lions with open jaws, snakes coiled in motion, vultures spreading their wings, scorpions crawling across the surface. Every figure etched with precision, every line deliberate. These aren't random decorations. They are symbols. Messages carved into stone long before writing was ever invented. And that's where the mystery deepens. Why did ancient people, hunter-gatherers with no cities, no writing, no temples before this, choose to cover these pillars with animals? What were they trying to say? Some believe the carvings were spiritual, representations of gods, totems, or spirit guides that connected early humans with the unseen world. Perhaps each animal represented a different power: the strength of the lion, the rebirth of the snake, the protection of the vulture. In that sense, Göbekli Tepe might have been humanity's first cathedral, where nature itself was the divine. Not gods in human form, but gods of wind and sky, of death and life, of the hunt and the harvest to come. But others see something more cosmic. They believe the carvings may be astronomical, a kind of prehistoric star map written in symbols. For example, the vulture, scorpion, and fox appear not just once, but repeatedly, arranged in patterns that seem intentional. In 2017, researchers proposed that these animals might correspond to constellations, that the vulture could represent Sagittarius, the scorpion, Scorpius, and other animals mapping the sky as it appeared around 10,000 BC. If true, Göbekli Tepe might have been a celestial observatory, designed to track the stars and seasons, perhaps even to mark great cosmic events like solstices or meteor showers. It's a breathtaking idea, that before writing, before agriculture, before civilization itself, humans were already looking upward, connecting heaven and earth through art and stone. And yet not all carvings point to the sky. Some seem to look within, to the mysteries of life and death. One pillar shows a headless human figure beneath a vulture. Another depicts scorpions and snakes in motion, surrounding smaller animals as if guarding them. Could these scenes represent a journey, perhaps from life to death or from the physical world to the spiritual one? In many ancient cultures that came thousands of years later, vultures were seen as guides of the soul, carrying the spirit of the dead to the afterlife. If the same belief existed here at Göbekli Tepe, then these carvings may be among the earliest depictions of the human soul's journey beyond death. But who were these gods? These animals, these spirits to the builders of Göbekli Tepe? They left us no names, no stories, no myths, only these silent figures carved in stone. To some archaeologists, this silence is part of the message. Göbekli Tepe, they say, wasn't built to honor one god, but to celebrate the act of belief itself. It may have been a ritual center, a place where tribes from across the region gathered for ceremonies that unified them. Imagine hundreds of people standing around the central pillars, torches flickering in the night, shadows dancing across the carvings as chants echoed through the stone enclosures. No kings, no priests, just humans and the sacred rhythm of the world around them. If that was the case, Göbekli Tepe may have served as the birthplace of religion, the moment when humanity first turned faith into structure and spirituality into architecture. Klaus Schmidt, the archaeologist who discovered the site, believed this deeply. He once said, "In the beginning was the temple." According to him, people didn't build Göbekli Tepe because they had civilization. They built it to create civilization. The temple came first. Farming, cities, writing, that they came later. It's a reversal of everything we once believed. Instead of religion being a product of civilization, civilization might actually be a product of religion. The carvings on the pillars then were not just art, they were contracts, symbols of a shared belief that held communities together. They gave meaning to cooperation, reason to gather, purpose to build. And when people started gathering regularly in one place, everything changed. They needed food, shelter, tools. They needed to plan. So they began to settle. They began to farm. Göbekli Tepe might not just mark the birth of religion, it could mark the birth of human society itself. But even if it was a temple, what kind of rituals took place there? That question remains one of archaeology's greatest enigmas. No altars have been found, no remains of large-scale sacrifices, no clear signs of habitation. But fragments of bones, with both animal and human, suggest that feasting and ceremonies were common. Perhaps offerings were made to the carved spirits, asking for success in the hunt or protection from nature's wrath. Some theorists even propose that Göbekli Tepe may have served as a gateway between worlds, the physical and the spiritual. The tall T-shaped pillars, some with carved arms and belts, might represent deities or ancestors standing as intermediaries between humans and the divine. When viewed from above, the entire site almost resembles a mandala, a circle within circles, symbolizing the universe itself. Others notice the absence of female imagery. Unlike many later Neolithic sites, which are filled with fertility symbols and mother goddesses, Göbekli Tepe's carvings are dominated by animals and masculine forms. This suggests a different kind of spirituality, one focused on cosmic order, transformation and power rather than fertility or domestic life. And yet, for all its complexity, the site's purpose might have evolved over time. Each layer uncovered by archaeologists reveals new structures built atop the old, as if each generation added its own chapter to the story. The oldest enclosures are the largest and most impressive, while later ones become smaller and less elaborate, suggesting a slow decline in the ritual importance of the site. Why? Maybe the beliefs changed, maybe new rituals emerged, or the focus of worship shifted, or maybe as agriculture spread and life became easier, the need for such massive communal gatherings began to fade. Eventually, around 8000 BC, the builders of Göbekli Tepe did something unthinkable. They buried it. They filled the enclosures with earth and debris, carefully, almost reverently. It wasn't destroyed or abandoned in haste. It was deliberately sealed, as though closing a sacred chapter of their story. Perhaps they believed its purpose had been fulfilled. Perhaps it was time to move on, to build elsewhere, to begin a new phase of human life. Whatever the reason, Göbekli Tepe became a time capsule, a preserved echo of the dawn of belief. And within that silence, within those buried stones lies a message that long before humans worshipped gods of the sky or built cities of gold, they gathered under open stars to celebrate something deeper, the mystery of existence itself. Every carving, every animal, every symbol is part of that language, one we're only beginning to translate. The lion for courage, the snake for rebirth, the vulture for transcendence, the scorpion for danger or the afterlife. Each image tells us something about what these ancient people feared, honored and hoped for. It's as if Göbekli Tepe is a book without words, its pages written in stone, its meaning echoing through time. A story of humans at the edge of awareness, discovering not just how to survive but how to believe. Because when you look at those carvings, you can feel it. That first spark of something timeless. The same spark that later gave rise to temples, pyramids, cathedrals and mosques. The same spark that still drives us to search for meaning beyond ourselves. Göbekli Tepe wasn't built for kings or for power. It was built for connection, between man and nature, earth and sky, life and death. And perhaps that is its greatest symbolism of all, that even at the dawn of time, humans looked at the world around them and felt there was something greater out there, something worth carving into stone forever. Before we talk about how Göbekli Tepe changes everything we know about the past, we have to remember one thing. For centuries, history has been told in a straight line. According to that story, humans started small. We hunted, we gathered, we survived. Then came farming, villages, tools, and finally civilization. Religion, art, writing, all of it, we were told, came after we learned to settle down, but Göbekli Tepe tears that timeline apart. Because this ancient site doesn't fit anywhere in the old story. It sits at the very dawn of humanity, older than any known city, older than agriculture, older even than the idea of civilization itself. And yet, it's unmistakably a work of culture, of belief, of purpose. It tells us something almost impossible, that civilization didn't create religion. Religion might have created civilization. For generations, scholars believed that once humans learned to farm, they had the free time and stability to start dreaming, to think about gods, art, and meaning. But Göbekli Tepe suggests the opposite. It shows us that the desire to believe, to build sacred spaces, to come together for spiritual reasons, may have been the spark that made us settle in the first place. Think about that for a moment. The first great human construction wasn't a house. It was a temple. Before cities, before governments, before even writing, people were already gathering around faith, not organized religion as we know it, but something older, more primal. Her shared sense that there was something greater, something worth uniting for, and to build that temple they had to work together. They had to organize, plan, communicate. They needed food, resources, tools, and people. That cooperation, born out of spiritual purpose, may have laid the foundation for society itself. In other words, belief built the blueprint for civilization. It's a complete reversal of what we thought we knew. And it forces historians to ask a dangerous question. If everything we've built, our systems, our cities, our culture, came from an act of worship, then maybe faith, not necessity, was the mother of invention. But Göbekli Tepe doesn't just challenge the story of religion, it challenges the story of human capability. Before its discovery, scientists assumed that people 12,000 years ago lived simple lives. They were thought to be wanderers, bound by the rhythm of the hunt. But those people, whoever they were, built something so sophisticated, it would take modern archaeologists decades to understand it. They carved symbols with intention. They aligned stones with the heavens. They shaped meaning from stone, not chaos. That tells us that the human mind, creative, spiritual, and organized, existed long before we imagined it did. It also suggests that we've underestimated our ancestors. They weren't primitive. They weren't aimless. They were dreamers, builders of ideas, not just tools, and that realization has shaken the foundations of archaeology. Because if hunter-gatherers could build Göbekli Tepe, what else could they have done? How many other sites buried under time might be waiting to rewrite our past again? It's a humbling thought that maybe our history isn't missing a few pages. Maybe it's missing entire chapters. Some researchers even suggest that Göbekli Tepe could be the missing link between the Paleolithic and Neolithic worlds, the bridge between wandering tribes and settled civilizations. It represents that fragile moment when humans began to define themselves not by what they hunted, but by what they believed in. It's as if the builders of Göbekli Tepe stood at the crossroads of humanity's awakening, looking both backward to survival and forward to meaning. And what they left behind wasn't just a structure, it was a signal. A marker of the moment when humans began to think differently. When you look at those carved pillars, standing in perfect circles beneath the open sky, you're looking at the first evidence of collective human imagination, a moment when thought became structure and belief became architecture. That's what makes Göbekli Tepe so powerful. It doesn't just add to our understanding of history, it redefines it. For centuries, historians have drawn a clean line. First came food, then villages, then temples. But Göbekli Tepe flips that order upside down. Here it seems the temple came first. People didn't build because they farmed. They farmed because they built. It suggests that spiritual purpose, the search for meaning, might have been the original force that united humanity. And that changes everything. If religion led to civilization, then what we call progress isn't just technological, it's emotional, even spiritual. It means our greatest achievements weren't born from survival alone, but from the urge to connect, to believe, to reach for something greater. That realization forces scientists to rethink the timeline of human development. Perhaps the rise of civilization wasn't a sudden leap, but a gradual unfolding of human consciousness, where the sacred came before the practical, and maybe, deep down, the reason we still build temples, skyscrapers and monuments today is the same reason they built Göbekli Tepe, to make sense of the vastness around us. Some scholars even argue that this discovery changes our understanding of what it means to be human, because it shows that from the very beginning, humans were not driven only by hunger or fear, but by imagination. We wanted to understand our place in the universe. We wanted to build meaning out of stone and time. That's why Göbekli Tepe isn't just an archaeological site. It's a mirror, a reflection of our oldest instincts, our need to gather, to create, to believe. It also forces us to confront another uncomfortable truth. If people 12,000 years ago could organize on such a massive scale without writing, without governments, without kings, then maybe our modern idea of progress isn't as linear as we think. Maybe civilization doesn't move forward in a straight line, but in cycles, what's rising, collapsing, and rising again. And maybe Göbekli Tepe is a remnant of one of those early rises, a civilization of the spirit, rather than the state. Some researchers even go further, suggesting that the very act of burying Göbekli Tepe might have been symbolic, the end of one age and the beginning of another. A ritual farewell to an older world, as humanity stepped into a new one, a world of farming, tools and settlements. If that's true, then the people who buried Göbekli Tepe weren't just hiding their temple. They were closing the first chapter of human civilization. And so, this ancient site doesn't just question the past. It questions our understanding of ourselves. It asks, what if progress isn't about technology, but about consciousness? What if the greatest leap humanity ever made wasn't the invention of the wheel or writing, but the realization that we could build together for something unseen? Göbekli Tepe reminds us that long before the first cities, long before the first empires, long before anyone carved laws into stone, humans carved faith into it. It shows that cooperation, imagination, and spirituality were the real seeds of civilization, not survival, not necessity, and that forces us to rewrite the story of human progress from the ground up. Because maybe our ancestors weren't primitive people stumbling into modernity. Maybe they were visionaries, the first thinkers, the first dreamers who shaped the world with their beliefs. Standing at Göbekli Tepe today, surrounded by pillars older than recorded time, you can almost feel it, the echo of that moment when humanity woke up, when survival became meaning, when the first spark of civilization was born not from fear, but from faith. Before we talk about the mysteries still buried beneath Göbekli Tepe, we need to ask one of the most haunting questions in archaeology. Not who built it, but who buried it. Because around 8000 BC, after standing for thousands of years, Göbekli Tepe was deliberately covered, not destroyed, not abandoned to time and decay, but carefully, methodically, buried under layers of soil and stone, as if the people who built it wanted to protect it or erase it, and that single act turns an already mysterious site into something almost mythical. Why would anyone bury a temple so sacred, so monumental, and so far ahead of its time? Who decided to hide this masterpiece beneath the earth? And what were they trying to say or prevent? Archaeologists still debate these questions today, and none of the answers come easily. Some believe it was an act of preservation, that the builders facing the dawn of a new era, one of farming, settlement, and change, chose to seal away the old world. Perhaps Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a temple. It was the end of a spiritual age. By burying it, they may have symbolically closed a chapter in human consciousness. Others believe it was abandonment, pure and simple. That after centuries of ritual, the meaning of Göbekli Tepe faded. The people moved on, their beliefs transformed, and what was once sacred became obsolete. But if that were true, why bury it so deliberately? Why not let it fall to ruin like so many other forgotten places? The soil covering Göbekli Tepe wasn't random. It was intentional, layered, packed, structured, almost ceremonial. It's as if the act of burial was itself a ritual, the final ceremony performed at the temple that had defined a civilization. And then, silence. For thousands of years no one touched it. No one uncovered it. No stories survived. It was as if the people who buried Göbekli Tepe wanted it to vanish from memory, hidden beneath the earth until the world was ready to remember again. But maybe there's another possibility, one even more mysterious. What if Göbekli Tepe wasn't buried by its builders at all? What if it was covered by something else? A natural event, a climate shift, or even a catastrophe lost to time? Around 8000 BC, the world was changing fast. The Ice Age was ending. Temperatures rose, seas shifted, animal populations moved. It was a period of global transformation, chaos for early humans. Maybe Göbekli Tepe's people faced something they couldn't understand. A drought, a flood, a change so great it forced them to leave. And what if, in that turmoil, the temple was buried naturally, swallowed by dust, earth, and centuries of silence? Still, the precision of the burial, the way the pillars were preserved so perfectly, makes that hard to believe. It feels deliberate, purposeful. Almost like a message, but a message to who? To the gods they once worshipped? To future generations like us? Or perhaps a warning, one carved in stone and sealed in soil? Before we talk about the possibilities, let's remember this. Göbekli Tepe isn't the only site of its kind. Not anymore. Since its discovery, archaeologists have found other smaller sites scattered across southeastern Turkey. Karahan Tepe, Sefer Tepe, Tazlı Tepe, and more. Each shares strange similarities. Circular enclosures, T-shaped pillars, carvings of animals, and abstract symbols. Together they form what researchers now call the Taş Tepeler, the stone hills. It's as if Göbekli Tepe wasn't a lone miracle, but part of an entire network of sacred sites, a civilization of spirit, not cities, and if one of them was buried, how many others still sleep beneath the soil untouched? The region around Göbekli Tepe is vast and ancient, its hills shaped by time and erosion. Radar scans suggest that beneath some of these mounds, more structures lie hidden, still waiting to be uncovered. Each could hold new carvings, new symbols, maybe even clues to the people who built and buried them. But that's the frustrating beauty of Göbekli Tepe. The deeper we dig, the more questions we uncover. Even the carvings, those haunting reliefs of animals, vultures, foxes, snakes, scorpions, whisper secrets we can't yet understand. Were they guardians of the site? Representations of myths we've long forgotten? Or something else? Constellations mapped in stone, perhaps linking heaven and earth in a code we've only begun to decipher. Some archaeologists think the carvings might record astronomical events, perhaps even a cataclysm, witnessed by its builders. One theory links the symbols on Pillar 43, the so-called vulture stone, to a comet impact around 10,950 BC, an event that may have triggered the end of the Ice Age. If true, Göbekli Tepe could be the world's oldest observatory, a warning encoded in stone, recording a disaster that changed the world. But again, we're left with possibilities, not proof. Each discovery opens another door, and behind every door another mystery waits. Before we talk about the people themselves, we have to face a truth. We still know almost nothing about them. No burials, no homes, no signs of settlement near the site. It's as if they appeared from nowhere, built the most complex structure on Earth, and vanished. That absence is chilling. Where did they come from? Where did they go? And why is there no trace of their everyday life? Only the echoes of their faith carved into stone. Some say they were hunter-gatherers on the edge of transformation. People from scattered tribes who came together seasonally for rituals and ceremonies. Others believe they were something more. Remnants of a forgotten culture, one that predates everything we know. Say people whose knowledge was lost, leaving behind only fragments we now struggle to piece together. But whatever the truth, one thing is certain. Göbekli Tepe doesn't belong to any known chapter of history. It exists between worlds, between the Stone Age and the dawn of civilization, between memory and myth. That's what makes its unanswered questions so powerful. Because they don't just challenge archaeology, they challenge the limits of what we think humanity was capable of. And maybe that's why it was buried. Maybe those who built it understood that their knowledge or their beliefs didn't belong in the world that was coming next. Perhaps they buried Göbekli Tepe not to hide it, but to protect it, from time, from change, from us. It's a haunting idea that they sealed their greatest creation beneath the earth, trusting that one day someone would find it again and remember. And now, thousands of years later, we stand where they once stood, looking at the same stones, asking the same questions. Who were they? Why did they build this? And what else have we forgotten? Because if Göbekli Tepe could sleep beneath the earth for 12 millennia before revealing itself, what other monuments are still out there waiting? Every discovery in this region hints that Göbekli Tepe might just be the beginning, the visible tip of a civilization buried beneath the sands of time. A civilization that never wrote its story, but carved it in stone and hid it from the world. And maybe, just maybe, the earth itself has been guarding that story, waiting for the right moment, the right generation to uncover it. Before we talk about what comes next, imagine this, somewhere under another hill in Turkey, or Syria or Iran, another circle of stone could be waiting, another message from the past untouched, unseen. A whisper from a people who built not for themselves but for eternity. What will we find when we uncover it? Another Göbekli Tepe, or something even older? Something that pushes the origins of civilization back yet again? That's the haunting power of unanswered questions. They remind us that history isn't complete, that for all our technology, our science, our certainty, the earth still holds secrets older than memory. And every time we think we've reached the beginning of human history, a place like Göbekli Tepe rises from the dust to tell us we haven't even begun. Before we end, take one last look at those ancient stones, silent, weathered, unbroken. Göbekli Tepe isn't just a temple, it's a message from our forgotten past, a whisper across 12,000 years, reminding us that long before cities and empires, humans were already reaching for something greater, for meaning, for connection, for the divine. Each pillar still stands as proof that our ancestors weren't primitive. They were thinkers, artists and dreamers who carved their beliefs into eternity. And maybe the real mystery isn't how they built it, but how much we've forgotten. Because somewhere beneath the earth, more secrets wait, waiting for us to remember who we truly are. If you enjoyed uncovering these ancient mysteries, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the bell so you never miss another journey into the forgotten chapters of human history.